Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to enabling cross-component trace. So we are going to understand what is cross-component trace and how to enable it. Now, every every communication with the customer involves some kind of a request ID in the log and the trace records, right? So enabling the XCT, which is your, let me go in over here. So this is the one correlation. So here is where you enable the correlation over here, which includes the request ID logs, trace records, and create correlation records. So what this means is that it's going to correlate all the request IDs with the actual, with your logs and traces records. Now, this is a very advanced functionality and very useful in terms of tracking your request ID, and it will be capturing and correlating with your logs and traces record. Now, you can also go for additional information, like, for example, not rather than just creating a correlation record, but also captures data snapshots. So this is advanced. So you can see that enable XRT to capture data snapshot when you want to store entire request and response bodies into a file system. But this option is a significant performance impact on your system. So do remember that this is only for testing and development purpose and not for production, because it incurs a lot of performance on your system. So because it has to store the entire snapshot of your request. But this one, on the other hand, will not have that much of a performance issue, but it also is, as you can see over there in the in here in the description, it also has performance impact on your system because it needs to correlate all your records with the request ID. So this is also going to have some performance issue. Again, this is best suited for testing and development environments, not for production. So let's just see how it works. It's not mandatory that you should enable it, but while testing it, and if you want to correlate the IDs and see how the requests are flowing through, this is one good way of looking at it. So now let's just understand that enabling this XCT to include the request ID in your tracing and logs and tracing files, when you want to see which logs and tracing entries in all the threads of your application server process, which are related to the same request. Now, request IDs are recorded only when the HPEL logs and trace mode can be seen using a filtering using log viewer. I will talk about that in some time. So do remember, let me stress this again. This has performance significance issue, performance cost on your system. So do remember that before enabling this, and do not enable this on production mode, production service. So all you have to do is like to enable this XCT. There are two parts to it. Okay, firstly, you can select this option, and then let's do it on the runtime so that it is enabled right away without a restart. And also you have this option over here under com sorry com.ibm.websphere. Under that, you will have XCT over here. So you can select all messages and traces so that you can see that information as part of this. Let's remove the previous ones. We don't need it because it will just create additional, log files. So let me remove this database one as well. So let's just leave this as it is. Now, let's disable this. Let's click on OK. Now you can see that we have done the changes. So now we should have this mode enabled for us, where we will have our logs, including the trace message as well. So, I mean, with the request IDs. So let's just give it some time to get through this. All right. So now let's go ahead and verify if this has come through. So I'm just verifying this if the request ID is coming through. Just bear with me. All right, so you need to enable one more item. I forgot to do that. So come back to the logs and tracing, go to runtime, and then here you need to enable, go over here, and you need to enable one more item, which is your com.ibm.ws local. Under that, there's something called local HTTP. So just enable this messages. So there should be two item enabled for you. One is your XRT and sorry, XCT and local HTTP. So both these item needs to be enabled. Sorry about that. That's the one of the reason it didn't appear, I guess. So let's try it now. Let's just try to logging and tracing. Let's just view logs, and then let's see. Right now you see a difference. You should be seeing a difference when you get a request from any kind of a website. You will be able to see the request coming in. It should look like this. I'm not sure. I'm not able to show you because there's no real application. Yeah, there you go. That's the one. So now this is basically what I wanted to show you. So this is basically your XCT information. Now you can see that over here. It's from WebSphere XCT, and it basically gives you the complete information. So now this is an application by itself. Now this is what it is. Now you can also see this information there highlighted over here, as well as like you will get this complete information. So let's just try to understand this much better. Now if you can see it over here, so this used to be coming in before from the servlet wrapper. Now it is coming from XRT with the complete information. So let's just sort it via, let's just go with select columns and then disable all these things, and then just go with this. And yeah, so show all threads. Now you can see it over here. So this is basically what I was talking about. So now we are in the IBM console view log servlet. You can see the begin address over here. So this is your address. This is your request ID coming through over here. So to be precise, right, when an HTTP request arrives, the server does an XCT begin. So this means that the begin over here is the first thing which has been called up, which indicates that the request started to process. The entry is logged in as the following information. The first one is your parent XCT ID. The next one is a current XCT ID, and then what type of request it is. It's an inbound request, you can see that, and it talks about the URI of the request context object. So it talks about IBM console log viewer instance servlet. So basically these are the information to start with, and then it talks about the ID from the HTTP channels. This is basically your ID from the HTTP channel, and then the remote address over here, which is basically the address of your remote, and this is the connection originated from. Then the same request will be completed with the end, XCT end. This action marks the request is finished. Okay, so again, this comes with the parent XCD ID, which will be the same as the one before, and this also has the current XCD ID, and then it talks about the type of request that includes the inbound or outbound request. So this is again inbound request, and then it talks about the return code. Return code is basically either a success or a redirection or 401 or authentication issue. So likewise, it talks about the return code, which is 200, which is good news. And then it talks about the HTTP channel request, what is the inbound or outbound, whatever the context object ID talks about. The same thing as it did for the begin and the end. Now, using this, you will be able to figure out the request starting and request ending. And it will also give you the information whether the request response code or return code was success or not. Okay, so this is basically what we wanted to see on this video. Okay, so this basically tells you that an the XCT is working fine, and we were able to retrieve the data of your your complete request coming through and exiting. Also, you can see with the written code. So this is called enabling cross component trace. Okay, so this is what cross component trace is all about. Thank you again for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one. If you have any questions, leave it on the question section.